Hey guys, welcome back to another Derail Valley Simulator tutorial. Today we're going to be taking a look at the DM3. Now, we're going to be doing pretty much an in-depth guide on how it works and, what you should be doing and what to expect when you're driving this locomotive. So basically, the way a diesel mechanical locomotive works is that you got your main engine that goes usually to a hydraulic fluid coupling that turns a gearbox that goes to the actual wheels, and you got gearing to control what gear you're in. That's how I understand it. Anyone who's watching, if I got anything wrong, just let me know. But that's how I understand it. Um, and today we are going to be taking an order, 712 tons. Now, at first glance, you might say, well, hey, that's way too heavy for this single little locomotive, but it's actually not. See, you can haul a lot of weight with this one little thing. It's a slow climb, but you can do it, and it's actually quite fun, and it's quite satisfying getting up the hill. So we're going to be attempting this, and, I really don't think this is out of the reach of this locomotive. So, when you get into the cab, you want to turn on the electrics, and you want to turn on the starter. Then you hold the starter button. I prefer to turn off the starter breaker when I don't need it, but it really doesn't matter. You can turn on the cab light and the dash light, and we got the headlights on, but we don't really need those right now, so we'll just turn that off. Right, so you got your reverser, right? So you put that in the direction you want when you want to go in a specific direction. Then you got yourself the throttle lever. This is what you use to control the throttle. Now, I just want to point one thing out. When you're going full throttle, it's likely you'll overheat. So most of the time you'll have to bring it back by 1 notch. But other than that, you should be fine. You'll still be able to haul tonnage. So yeah, this is your independent brake. So you can use this to put on your brakes or just for the locomotive itself. These are the gearboxes, but I'll take a look at that once we're actually getting going. So I'll explain that later. Right, so this is the non-self-lapping brake. So basically, it's kind of like the steam locomotive in the sense that it's not really like this where it just automatically goes and puts it to your desired brake pressure. You have technically 4 stages, but I'm just going to say 3 for simplicity's sakes. So you got the release stage. You got the what's it called? I think it's like just call it like the normal stage where it just doesn't release nor does it apply. Then you have the apply function, where basically this will apply the brakes by releasing the brake pressure from inside the hose, which you can see right now it was decreasing. And then you also have the emergency, which it's basically the same thing except just really it puts on the brakes faster. And then back here you got your handbrake, which, it's a handbrake, nothing much else to say. And then, last but not least, you got your engine brake. Now this is going to be used a lot when you're going down the hills because, you don't want your brakes to overheat, which will happen in certain locomotives, especially the steam locomotives. That's kind of something that happens where you'll be wanting to brake, but you kind of have to manage braking so that stuff doesn't overheat and fail. And then you got your sander, which in your low gears, even when it's not raining, you're still going to need that. So that's something to look out for. It looks like it's lightly drizzling. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. And then you got your fuel cutoff and you got your horn. And then on here you got your light types. So this is day running lights. This is low beams, and then you put both of them on for high beams. And then if you want them to turn red, just do the same thing, but in this way. Then you got your wipers. This is speed 1, I believe, which is the slowest. Then I believe this is going to be speed 2. And then you activate both of them for fast operations. And you got your cab lights and your dash lights. So that's pretty much the whole control scheme of the locomotive. So let's get reversing. And this is kind of like a car transmission. So once you put it in gear, it'll start rolling on its own. So that's what you got to keep in mind. So I'm not going to go too in depth with the gearing until we get hooked on. Then I'll be able to show you an in-depth look on what you should be doing when shifting, when to shift, and you know, then I'll go into that. But we're going to attach to these tanker cars gasoline and diesel. It's a very expensive job, and it's pretty heavy for the demonstration purposes of this video. Now, I'm pretty confident that this will be a possible thing to do to bring it up the hill, but it's going to be slow. We're going to be going around probably 5 kilometers an hour or less up the hill. It's a very, very, very slow process, but if you do it right, you can get it up the hill. Especially, even if it's raining, you can still do it. Let's keep this thing at speed. Now, one thing I do want to mention is, when you're shifting, you want your throttle or your engine brake to be all the way back. You don't want any engine brake or any throttle active when you're shifting your gears, otherwise it'll cause damage. And of course, you don't want to shift your gears when it's... You don't want to shift down too much, otherwise you'll break your gearbox. So that's to be expected. I'm just going to turn down the audio a little bit more, because the audio was quite loud last time. There we go. It was quite loud last time on the S282's video. Now I will probably do a segment. I stalled the engine. That's one thing you have to look out for as well. You can stall the engine out, so that's something you really gotta look out for. But anyways, so you just gotta make sure you don't stall the engine out, and you should be good on the grade. But you'll have to use sand definitely when you're going up the hill. Now this load is going to City Southwest. Okay, so we will be going out that way, which is west, I believe. So I hope you guys enjoyed the S282 video. You know, I got around 400 views on it, so I thank you guys for watching that and giving it support. And hopefully you guys can get some help on this video as well, because this is probably the most complex diesel locomotive in the game. And whilst it is a small locomotive, it definitely is not underpowered. Alright. I'll just put it in neutral there. Cool, 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 cool. Alright, there we go. Now, one thing that did happen is I did derail purposefully, because I had a surplus of money and I just wanted to see stuff go kaboom on the way into the harbor. So there's probably a good chance that stuff is there. So I hope that won't get into the way of the operations here. Alright, so let that there for a second. Let's go redeem this job offer. So it's raining. I don't think the rain will be that big of a deal. Guess we'll have to see. It kind of depends. Sometimes rain is a bad thing, but it doesn't look like it's going to be too bad of rain, possibly. Alright, so let's redeem this here. D60, yep. Alright, so we're going to C3I in City Southwest. So that should be doable. As long as those rail cars are not in the way up on the hill. Hopefully not. I would imagine they have despawned by now, but I guess we'll have to find that out. Right, so, for the gearboxes, before we get going, here's the sequence that you want to be shifting them. Now, the first one is, I believe, 2-1. Then it's 1-2. Then it's 2-2. Then it's 3-1. Then it's 3-2. Then it's 2-3. And then it's 3-3. So that's your sequence of gears. That might sound complicated, but after you sort of get used to it, it's really not that difficult to remember. You just have to get used to it and get a feel for it, so it shouldn't be too difficult after a while. Let's put our EOT marker light on the back here. There we go, and we'll release the handbrake. We shall get going. Now, let's see how this is. I have, on my own personal rating scale, I have rated this locomotive up to 700 tons. And it probably could do a tad bit more as well. So, it's probably not out of the question. So, since it's raining, you want to get a little bit of sand down. And that's fully released by the looks of things. Yep. And you want to shift once your RPMs get around to the 1,000 mark there. We want to hit at least 40 on the way up, just so we have a decent amount of momentum, because we don't want to waste all of our sand. Probably get rid of the sand now, since we're at a sufficient speed. And we can probably turn on the wipers a little bit, just so that we're good on that part. We'll put on some lights as well. So since we're still at decently low temperatures, we'll keep it at max throttle, but once we start going up the hill, then we'll have to kick it back a notch. But that's fine. We still have easily enough power to do that. There we go. Getting up to speed. This is, by the way, this is my favorite diesel locomotive in the game. It's so in-depth and interesting to play with. It's really quite my favorite. So I am actually happy to bring this tutorial to people, especially people who don't understand it very much and need a bit of help when it comes to understanding how to actually do it. It brings light to that and makes it more enjoyable for others, so I hope this helps you guys. See, right there I did 1-3, that was pretty dangerous. I could have blown the gearbox there if I wasn't careful. I did that by accident, so try not to do that. So we're at 30. This does accelerate pretty slowly, but that's to be expected. It's using gearing, so that's to be expected. So as long as we don't have to hit exactly 40, but as long as we get in the general area of 40, we should be good. So it does look like rain's going to be upon us, but that's not to worry, because if we can't get up the hill when it's raining, we'll just we'll wait it out and then we'll continue on later. But I'm thinking we should be able to get up pretty easily. We still have a pretty decent amount of sand. As long as we can get up the first hill here, the initial climb, it should be good. And I might do a shorter video showcasing on if I can possibly get up the hill with the coal mine hill with the S282 with 960 tons instead of 880. I think it might be possible. I tried it once. It didn't work. But that was because I didn't get a big run up. I only did it the way I did on the video. But if I pull up onto that loop, I might be able to reverse and get a bigger run up. And I'm going to see if that works on a video, possibly. We'll see if that helps out a little bit. Right, so you want to downshift when it gets around to the 60 there. We're pretty much there. Now, keep in mind it might look like you're gonna stall out, but this thing has a lot of torque in the high gears. So we're getting a little bit of slipping action there. Little toot-toot. Okay, we're already at those gears there. So we're getting a bit of higher oil temperatures. So we're in the second gear right now. We're one less of the max throttle, and we should be able to maintain our speed for a little bit here. We might have to go into the first gear once we get to this like really steep section, but I think we should be able to do it. We'll see. Let's see if we can go a little bit less. Because if we can save our sand, that's gonna help us in the long run. It's actually quite impressive how much torque this locomotive actually has. You can get up the hill with a lot of weight on your engine. I've gotten up this hill with 650 tons, so this is only 50 more tons. I imagine it should be able to do it. You see we're slipping a little bit there. We want to put on a little bit more sand. You can see we're going pretty slowly, but it should work. See, we're slipping a little bit, so we'll just keep on putting on more sand. Should be good. So it's very slow, but it does work. You can see that's the summit over there. We'll see if we can get up there or not. We're putting down as much sand as we can. We'll try to stay in this gear if we can, just so we don't have to deal with extra slippage if it does arise on the next gear. Right, we'll go to the first gear anyways. You can see that gear's a bit too much. Right, so yeah, it looks like with the rain it's a bit too much for the locomotive. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to sit here for a bit. We'll let the temperature come down. We're going to try to start it off on the second gear here. And it does look like the rain is actually slowing down a little bit, so it should be possible to get going again once it stops raining here. As long as the wetness can get down, it should be possible. So I might cut out a little bit of the video until it really stops raining here. Let's try doing this again here. So you can see that we're slipping a little bit, but we should be able to get up. We'll have to see how it goes. Putting down as much sand. Yep. So this should be possible. Looks like I don't have to cut out anything. So let's turn off these windshield wipers. So when it's raining, I would advise taking maybe like 100 tons less or something. But when it's dry, I think you could probably take a lot more. You could probably take an extra 50 tons than 700. It's definitely a slow climb, and it is kind of scary at sometimes. But if you do it right, it is possible. And as long as we get past this initial point here, which is pretty much the steepest part, we should be fine. It's very slow, but it is possible. And as long as you don't run out of sand, which you can run out of sand. You can see I'm a little bit getting low on sand, but as soon as I get past this point here, it should get a little bit better. You can see the oil temperatures are very high, but it should be good. You can see it's not getting higher, so that should be fine. I don't think the locomotive takes damage from when it's in the red. I think it only takes damage if you overheat it. And one thing you can do is you can go back to a career manager to get to restore your sand in your locomotive. That is something you can do. You can see it's like a 4 km/h climb, but it is possible. And this is kind of the point where you should be starting to speed up a little bit. We'll try to conserve our sand a little bit here. So I'd rather throttle down a little bit and use less sand than use more than I need, because you see we're getting a bit low, but we're gonna need that for the second part of the climb, which isn't as long of a climb either. So hopefully we can do without most of it. So that's the worst of the climb over, which is good. You can shift preemptively as well. That's something that you can do. You don't have to strictly shift once you're at 1,000. If you need a little bit less torque just so you don't slip, that is something you can do. You can shift. So I'd say that was pretty successful. We still have the second part of the climb, but we still probably have enough sand to get up the second part here. But if not, we'll just run over to the career manager and we'll reset it. So it looks like the cars have despawned, so that's good. So we don't have to worry about that no more. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to keep our gear as high as we can so we don't have to waste sand. I think we should be able to stay at gear 3, probably, going up this second part of the climb. So we probably won't have to use as much sand, possibly, but we're going to have to see. So as long as we don't get pretty much past the 115 part, or 115 degrees area, we should be fine. We don't want to push it too hard. This locomotive definitely can do a decent amount of weight. So as soon as we see signs of slipping, we will we'll put a little bit of sand on. We're not gonna do too much because we don't wanna overachieve here. We use most of it on the heavy part of the climb, but this one's not as intense. So we should be able to maintain this gear ratio, maybe. We'll see. And hopefully the audio is better this time around. Hopefully you guys can hear me over the locomotive. I think it shouldn't be too bad, but I guess we'll see once I upload it. So as you can see, I'm able to stay in gear 3 without any repercussions, and I'm not even having to use sand right now, so this is actually quite ideal. And this locomotive is pretty cheap to maintain too, so you can haul heavy and you can make a big ass profit off of it as well. Because I'm pretty sure this locomotive only really costs around 10,000 to maintain manually if you do like a big load like this. So you're profiting probably around like 150 grand, especially with the order bonus, which I'm pretty sure I can still make even when doing it like this. So yeah. If you guys are enjoying this tutorial, be sure to drop a like and a comment as well. Let me know if you want to see more of Derail Valley. I can definitely do a DH4 tutorial for you guys, even though that one's probably not as complicated. But you know, DH4 and D6, and D2, those ones are kind of all just in that like area of like they're pretty much kind of easy to do. Though I'm not the biggest fan of the diesel electric simulation in this game. I kind of think it's crappy. Not to put shame to the developers' work, but it really could have been done a lot better. I'm not the biggest fan of it. But everything else is quite good in this game. I like all the rest of it. So you see, we're getting a bit of higher oil temperatures. That's fine as long as it doesn't get too high, like past 115, which is like pretty much a little bit further than the middle of that red zone. You should be fine. So we're getting a little bit of slippage, you can hear that. So we'll put on a little bit of sand just so we don't have to worry about that. We're not going to go full bore sand because we don't want to waste any sand. Because this is pretty much the last climb, but once you go into that tunnel that brings you onto that fast section of track, there is a tiny tiny little bit of a climb there, so you want to be careful with that. So right here is pretty much where it starts leveling out, I believe. Actually, no, it's like right there. So once we get there, we should start speeding up, and then we will be able to get on our way. So heavyweight is definitely possible with the DM3. You just gotta know how to do it correctly, and if you know how to do it and you execute it properly, you know, you can definitely do that. But rain is kind of a killer in this game, so as you saw, there was a little bit of a hiccup, but as long as you don't got no rain, you should be fine. So, still a little bit of slippage, so I'll keep it on for a little bit more. But yeah, rain, just sit it out for a little bit if you're going to take something like this. As you saw, the rain stopped pretty quickly after I stopped, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But for you, if you're taking a load like this, I recommend just sitting it out, maybe like sleep for a little bit, and you should be able to just bypass that rain, and then you shouldn't have no problem getting up the hill. But other than that, it's actually quite easy to actually do this. And this is a very enjoyable locomotive for me. This and the S282 and the S060, those three are like my favorite locomotives to run. And the DH4 is probably like my fourth favorite, just because it's like it acts like the way I wish the diesel electric locomotives would behave. Because it overheats if you have it max throttle, but like you can go one notch below and you can climb up the hill slowly, which is kind of what the whole premise of diesel electric stuff is. You know, you wouldn't have the overheating element so prevalent in a diesel electric, not the way that they have it currently modeled in games, so it's kind of eh. So hopefully they'll make some changes to that or something, but this is kind of absurd. I just rather take out other locomotives than the diesel electrics. They're kind of just eh. Not to put throw crap at the developers for making it that way, but you know, they could have definitely made it a little bit better than what they did. But anyways. So we got up that hill pretty good. I'd say that was pretty successful. And looks like the majority of the train is past the incline now, so we should be able to start speeding up a little bit, get up to like maybe 25, 30, maybe 40 if we're lucky. You know, I've never really hauled 700 tons. I've hauled 650, like I said, but this was striving for new heights, and definitely goes to show that you can do it if you do it right. So okay, let's shift this gear a little bit here. And one thing I do want to mention is you can skip gears in this locomotive if your load allows it. Like with a load like this heavy, I probably wouldn't recommend skipping gears unless you're going downhill. But other than that, if you're like hauling like 100 tons, you can definitely skip gears. Like that's something you can definitely do. Let's go to the next gear here. Now I'm gonna go full throttle because we're pretty much at that point where we're getting enough airflow into the radiator that it's not gonna overheat if we're at max throttle like it does when you're going super slow. It's still gonna go into the yellow. If it goes too far into the red, I'll cut back, but it shouldn't go too high. So we'll see. This is obviously a tiny bit of an incline, but that's not too bad. So usually you know, like mild grades like below 1% usually aren't too bad for this locomotive, so they usually don't slow it down too bad. Alright, we'll bring it back down to 2.2. We'll bring it back down one notch here. So that's basically the rule of thumb is bring it back a notch when you're at low gears and then send it when you're at high gears, basically. Once again, I hope you guys are enjoying this tutorial. Let me know if you guys want to see any other tutorials. I might actually do some testing with S282s, like I said, going up the coal mine with 960 tons. If I get a good run up, it might be possible. We'll have to see how it all works out. Because if I could hit maybe like 50 or 60 before I get onto the majority of the grade, it could be possible. So you can tell it's kind of leveling out here because it's starting to go up in revs here. So over there is pretty much where the next climb will be, but that's going to be the last climb. Once you get to there, then it, after you get up that climb, then it's pretty much all just downhill to the city, I believe. And we'll also be able to demonstrate the engine brake or the Jake brake, depends on where you live. For me, it'd be Jake brake because I live in Canada. But I also call it engine brake because I really don't care what the slang is, so you can see it's getting a little hot, but it's not too bad. As long as it don't get, like, overly hot. So you can see it's an average of 1.2. That, note those grade signs, they say the average of the grade. It doesn't say the exact grade, so... Personally, I would prefer if it said the maximum grade ahead, but that's just the way that they say, so nothing you can really do about that. That's interesting, we're speeding up a little bit. Maybe the grade doesn't start till you get past the switch. Maybe that's what it is. Well, that's good news for us, because then we can speed up a little bit before we get onto the grade. So basically, like I said, once we get past this switch here, it's a little bit of a grade up and through the tunnel, but it's after that, it levels off and it's all downhill from there. So once we get past that tunnel, we should be able to start hauling ass and getting progress done over to the city southwest before the timer is up, which it should be possible. It's 82 minutes and we're only halfway to that timer, so see, we're getting a little bit more heat. We're gonna go to 2.2. Now it's questionable if we're going to be able to maintain 2 gearboxes up this hill. I might have to go to gear 3, possibly. If it gets too low. In fact, I'm just going to preemptively switch to that gear. The 3rd gear seems to be a decent gear when you're going up not too steep of grades, and then 2nd or 1st gear is kind of the ones you go on when you're getting out of the harbor initially. So you'll use most of your sand on the initial part of the climb out of the harbor, because that's a really slow climb, but after that you're pretty much good. Are we slipping at all? Nope. And that's one thing with this locomotive, is you can jump out really easily and just take a look at what's going on the outside without risking it running away from you, especially in realistic mode. So it is actually quite interesting to hop out of the cab. So you can see this is not that bad of a grade in this tunnel. The killer was really the harbor climb outside of it, right outside of it. And we're pretty much done with the grades now. Next we can show off the engine brake when we're going downhill. We'll still have to use the train brake, but it won't have to be as much of a train brake. So take a look at that once we get onto the big downhill that goes down to the steel mill. So this is pretty much where it starts leveling off. Once the whole train's on this, we should be able to get up to 60 kilometers an hour or so. See, we're still doing good on fuel. The oil we're still doing good on. Yeah, we're doing pretty good for this run. The only hiccup was that rain, but other than that, it's going pretty good. Now we can probably get it at full throttle now, since we're on the flat section. We'll turn off our light, because we don't really need it right now, so. And I do want to recommend my Twitch to you guys. I do stream on there Minecraft. Not necessarily Derail Valley, but I might stream Derail Valley at some point on there. But if you guys are interested in that, be sure to check that out. Because I have been actually thinking of doing some Derail Valley on my Twitch channel, which I am an affiliate on there, so that's quite a nice achievement. It took me a while, but it worked out. I had my YouTube channel for most of the time, but then I just started getting to Twitch because I like streaming. And I mostly just stream Minecraft right now, because I have a realm with my friend Raging. He's a dear friend to me. He's a fucking... He's something. You'd have to watch a stream VOD if you wanted to... Or watch it live if you wanted to see what he is like, but he's quite a fun guy to hang around. But those streams are kind of comedy gold if you guys want to check that out, but I probably might do some Derail Valley on the stream at some point. We'll have to see. So as you can see, we're speeding up pretty good here. We're getting up to speed. And this is kind of like the point where stuff just starts to relax and you can kind of kick back and just let the locomotive do its thing. Finally got to go up to the max gear here. Now, I don't think the engine brake heats the engine up, so you can use it at maximum power without having to worry about nothing. So, that's a good thing. So we're at 40. This is pretty good. I think the max speed for this thing usually is around like 70, I believe. So we're probably not going to get like super fast, but once we get around 60, we'll probably just relax on the throttle. Just because I don't want to waste fuel. So that's kind of something you got to think about when doing this. It's not wasting fuel. Very explodey boys there. Probably around this area here. We'll be going down through here. We'll hitch a left here, go through the farm and the oil well, hitch a right on that line, hitch another right, and then hitch another right. Then we'll back up into the city southwest. See, we're hitting 50 kilometers an hour. See how fast we're going in comparison now? Because it actually kind of feels good once you're above and completed the hill, and then you're hauling ass. It's a good feeling. So once we hit 60, we'll just cut the throttle, and then we won't have to slow down because the speed limits ahead are only about 60. So. You basically just have to go back on the throttle once you get too high of RPMs there. Got a 60 zone. So I'm just going to cut off the throttle now and we'll just let it coast. This is quite a fun locomotive, I'm not going to lie to you guys. This is probably my favorite locomotive, so I definitely recommend trying this out for anybody. It's very cheap as well. It's cheap to maintain and the license is cheap, so if you want a locomotive that's cheap and effective, this is probably the one to go. But if you want steam, then obviously go with the SO60, but if you want like to be able to bring high value things that are heavy like this is probably the locomotive you should take out, unless you have like a DH4 license. It's all really what you feel like doing, so I just felt like doing a DM3 tutorial. And I did say I was going to do it anyway, so I'm just bringing this to you guys, because I know this locomotive kind of brings confusion to people. I see a lot of people complaining on the Steam forums on how it's confusing, so I'm just trying to shed light on the subject, just to make it a bit more clear to people who have confusion with it. So this is where we go downhill. So now we shall kick on the engine brake. So this will slow our descent, and we won't have to apply too much brakes. We will still have to, but not as much. So we're gonna kick on like 1 bar, maybe. All right, that's the released position there. So that's 1 bar of pressure. That should keep our descent at a stable amount there. And as long as we stay around the 50 zone, we should be good. And like I said, don't shift your gears once when you have your engine brake active. Just like the throttle, you want to bring back the engine brake completely and then shift your gear and then put it back on, rather than just shifting once you're on it. So we're gonna apply a little bit more, just so we don't, just so we can slow down a little bit, because we do have to hitch a left here, and the speed limit is 50 through there, and it goes to a pretty steep grade in there. So we're gonna just apply a little bit more there. It's a 3.3 average, so we will speed up through here. So we'll just keep our brakes the way they are and the engine brake the way it is. Then we should be good. It is okay if we go a little bit slower than the speed limit, because it's better to be safe than sorry, especially on a realistic save. Unless you have a surplus of money and you're purposely trying to destroy things. In that case, do what you want. Because that's what I did yesterday. I had 615 grand, and I was like, you know what? I feel like blowing something up, because why not? So that's what I did. Alright, so we can get rid of the engine brake now. We'll just let her coast. We're pretty much through that junction. So we're gonna get up to 60 again, and we'll just keep our momentum and get over to City Southwest to do this load. I hope you guys are enjoying this episode so far. Hopefully you find it informative. I am actually kind of curious. What do you guys think your favorite locomotive is? Post that in the comments below. And to be honest, my favorite locomotive probably is the S282, which is kind of weird. I don't really care for steam as much as most people. I'm really kind of a diesel electric locomotive guy. That's why I'm kind of sad how the diesel electric locomotives are in this game. I really like diesel electric, but the way that they took it just is not for me, so that's kind of sad for me, because I really like those locomotives and I can't use them because it's just not simulated properly in my eyes. But S282 is probably my favorite, then after that's probably DM3, and after that one's probably the SO60. But I am kind of interested on how the DE6 is going to act once the slug comes into play, because it's still going to have the same tractive effort, but maybe it won't overheat as bad. I guess we'll have to see. Basically, it's just more traction in wet conditions, so I guess we'll have to see how that looks in game. And I hope they do some more VRAM optimizations to this game, because it really doesn't perform very good. I got a 4060 Ti 8GB model, so it's a pretty decent graphics card, but even for this game, this game should not be using 8GB of VRAM. It should be using probably at max 6GB, if I had to say, at like ultra settings. Because it's kind of weird, because before Simulator it ran 90 FPS, but now it runs like 45 FPS. That's like twice as worse performance. So this is a mild climb, I'm pretty sure, but it's nothing that's gonna slow us down too much. But we are gonna have to slow down for a turn to like a 30-kilometer-an-hour turn, so we're gonna have to slow down quite significantly. We're gonna cut throttle here. We'll apply our engine brake here. So I'm not sure if the engine brake is going to be enough to slow us down to 30, but apply a little bit of brakes here. Ooh, that was dangerous. Yeah, I have a bad habit of scrolling way too fast. That's something you should look out for when you're doing that, so. So we're pretty much at a good speed here, so. This is kind of a killer corner. Which I've never derailed at this corner, which is interesting, but that 60 corner just before, I derailed at that one, so it's kind of funny a little bit. So we still got about around 20 minutes to go on the bonus timer, so that's pretty good. We'll just apply max throttle because, you know, why not? We're gonna be through the curve pretty much anyways. Whenever I hear Through the Curve, I just think of Unstoppable, the movie. It's such a good movie. Even though, to be honest, some of the stuff in there is not the most realistic per se, but it is entertaining, and it's a good train movie. In case any of you don't understand what kind of movie it is, it's basically a runaway train inspired by true events. But the fact of the matter is I don't understand how they got the train moving without air brakes, because you need air to supply the brakes, so that you basically the air that you supply into the brake pipes releases the brakes. So if there's no air, then how the fuck did you get the train moving in the first place? So, but other than that, it's a great movie. So we may as well just not speed up anymore, because we're pretty much at that point where we're gonna have to start reversing the locomotive anyways, so we'll just coast it for a little bit and see if we can get through the curve without having to put any more throttle on. So I think that was a pretty successful trip. We didn't use all of our sand, and we got 712 tons of diesel and gasoline up the hill. I think that's a pretty good. Load that we did. Put on a little bit of an engine brake. Slow us down a little bit more. That was some spicy sounds there. Put that in the lapping position. Once we get past that switch, then we can start reversing it. It was C3I, right? Yep. So we'll hop out of the train soon here. We'll try to get us lined up for C3I. So we should be at that point where we can just stop the train here. Alright, so we'll put in neutral. Okay, so let's get back over here and we'll switch the switches so that we're lined in. Hopefully we pass the switch. Looks like we did by a long shot. But it's better to be safe than sorry. So C3I is what we're looking for. One thing I wish that the game would do is scale the items to your FOV. Because I do prefer playing on 70 FOV settings, which usually it's at 50, I'm pretty sure, which is really zoomed in. But I wish they would scale it. So is this 3i? Yeah. So we're already lined in, so we can just reverse it up and we're good to go. Reversing it shouldn't be too hard. We could probably just apply light throttle and not go too high of gears without, because we're on a downhill, so we should be able to speed up pretty fast. So this is a pretty good load here. So let's release the brakes here. Oh, right. I was wondering why is the brake pressure not going down, but yeah, that makes sense. We're gonna hit for maybe like 20. We'll skip a gear there. Since we're going downhill, we can skip gears, because that's not gonna be too bad to skip a gear on a downhill, like I said. I do want to try this game in VR, but I'm kind of waiting for them to do more VRAM optimizations and general optimizations of the game, because it does not run good enough on regular mode for it to run on VR mode. We're pretty much at a good speed. We're already lined in for everything, so we'll just let her coast for now. So this will definitely add a decent amount of money to the bank. That's 111,721 base payment, and we still got the time bonus on top of that. We still have like 15 minutes extra. That's pretty good. So this, okay, we need to go past that switch there. This time, I'm not gonna forget the handbrake on the cars. I will not. I refuse. I always forget that, but this time I'm not. I think I'm gonna keep it in mind. max brakes, flapping position. Cool. So that's pretty much it, guys. Let's go redeem this job. Right, there we go. Damn, we got a lot of money, son. Look at that. We're rich. Alright, well, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Once again, if you found it informative and helpful, be sure to drop a like and a comment. I appreciate everybody who's watched this far. But yeah, I'll probably be back again for another steamer locomotive video, maybe trying out the 960 tons. But that's pretty much it. We're pretty far into a video, so I don't want to add on another segment, so I'll do that in a separate video. But yeah, if you guys like this, like it, comment, share, whatever you deem appropriate for this video. So I thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.